In the middle of nowhere, weary mechanic Ethan Cole pries open a hidden steel hatch beneath an abandoned workshop floor. As the door groans, cold mist rises from the darkness below, and a single light flickers to life after 40 silent years. His dog, Rex, growls at something unseen. Then the screen glows with a chilling message: Cole clearance accepted. From that moment, Ethan realizes someone, or something, has been waiting for him all this time. Before we start Journey, please take a few seconds to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. Where are you watching? Chapter 1. The Man in the Dead Land. The wind smelled of rain and rust, sliding down the empty hills of northern Oregon. The sky hung low, heavy with memory. Ethan Cole drove his aging blue pickup along a road that had long forgotten traffic. At 52, he looked like a man carved from iron and regret. Tall, lean, shoulders slightly bent from years hunched over engines. His hands were scarred maps of work and loss, his fingernails stained permanently gray with grease. A beard of ash and coal covered his square jaw, and behind his tired gray eyes lived a silence deeper than words. He hadn't spoken much since the plant shut down 2 years ago. Millbridge, the town that raised him, had gone dark. Its factories boarded up, its people scattered like bolts spilled from a broken machine. His garage closed last spring. The sign Cole's Auto and Welding still hung, swinging in the wind of a street no one used. When the bank took the building, Ethan sold everything that still held a price. What he couldn't sell, he buried. In the passenger seat sat Rex, a 7-year-old German shepherd, loyal in that wordless way dogs know heartbreak better than humans. His coat shone with a deep sable gloss, his ears erect, his eyes amber and alert. A faint scar ran along his right flank from a barbed wire fence, and his left paw twitched now and then when he dreamed. Rex had been Ethan's only companion since the day Daniel, Ethan's only son, came home from war inside a folded flag. Ethan never cried at the funeral. He had stood like a monument, hands folded, jaw locked, as if grief were another job he'd been fired from. Only Rex saw the cracks, the nights Ethan woke choking on air, muttering his son's name, then sat in silence till dawn. The truck rumbled up a gravel incline and stopped at a gate lined with rusted chain link. A faded sign read, U.S. Federal Property, Decommissioned. The lock had been replaced with a new brass one, the only sign of recent life. Ethan slid the key given to him by Linda Park, the realtor, a sharp, petite woman in her late 30s, with eyes that measured everything before they trusted it. She had warned him during the signing, "It's quiet out there, maybe too quiet." That was exactly what he wanted. The gate creaked open like it hadn't in decades. Beyond it sprawled a cluster of squat concrete buildings. One large hangar-sized structure, a water tower leaning like it had grown tired of standing, and power poles whose wires drooped like cobwebs. The earth was littered with weeds and glass that glimmered faintly in the dying light. Ethan parked in front of the main building. "Well, Rex," he muttered, stepping out into the chill, "guess this is home." The dog jumped down gracefully, nose already working, tail stiff with curiosity. Inside, the hangar smelled of old oil and rain-soaked dust. Rusted tools hung crooked on the walls, and a collapsed workbench leaned like a drunk against the corner. Ethan ran his fingers across the metal, cool, gritty, forgotten. He felt strangely comforted. Things here didn't expect him to talk or heal. They only asked to be repaired. He found an old stool and sat. The echo of his boots faded, replaced by the faint hum of wind pressing against the tin roof. For a while, he simply breathed, slowly, evenly, like a man trying to remember how. Rex paced, sniffing through the shadows until a low growl rose from his throat. "What is it, boy?" The shepherd stood near the far wall, pawing at a patch of cracked concrete, his ears flattened, tail stiff. Ethan approached, flashlight in hand. Beneath the dust and years of grime, the outline of something circular emerged. Metal, not stone. A steel hatch, about 3 feet wide, bolted flush into the floor. The surface bore faint etchings, numbers maybe, or symbols long eroded. He crouched and tapped it with a wrench. The echo was hollow, deeper than expected, as though the floor itself was lying. Rex whimpered softly and backed away. "Easy, pal," Ethan murmured, but his heart had begun to thrum with a mechanic's curiosity. He ran his hand along the rim. The metal was colder than the air, unnaturally so. No dust clung to it, no rust, like something that refused to age. The hatch had no visible handle, only a small recessed seam, welded shut long ago. Beside it, almost invisible, was a faint marking. Ethan squinted and read it aloud under his breath. Cole Clearance, 1981. The sound of his own name on the metal hit him like a wrench to the ribs. He blinked hard, thinking he had misread, but the letters were clear, cut into the steel, not written, not painted. "How the hell?" he whispered. Rex pressed against his leg, whining low. The dog's hackles rose, but not in fear, more like recognition. Ethan sat back on the floor, the flashlight trembling slightly in his hand. For a long while he said nothing, only listening to the roof creak, to the wind pushing dust through the cracks, and to the impossible thought forming in his mind. Someone had been expecting him. That night, after setting up a cot and lighting a camp lantern, Ethan lay awake staring at the ceiling. The silence here wasn't just quiet. It was watching. The kind that holds its breath to see what you'll do next. Rex lay beside him, head on his paws, eyes half open, the way soldiers sleep. Somewhere beneath them, in the cold metal heart of the floor, something waited. And when the lantern flickered just before dawn, Ethan could swear he heard it, a faint click from under the hatch, as if something on the other side had just unlocked. Chapter 2. Beneath the Floor in the Past. Sealed away. The morning came gray and soundless, the kind that made time feel like it had stopped breathing. Ethan Cole woke with his spine aching from the cot, his mind still tangled around the memory of the metallic click that had whispered through the floor hours before. Rex lay beside him, eyes open, ears turning toward every faint creak of the wind outside the hangar. When Ethan rose, the dog followed, silent but alert, the kind of alert that said something had changed. Ethan approached the steel hatch again, flashlight in hand. The air around it felt different, colder, denser, as if the room itself were holding its breath. The faint line where the hatch met concrete had widened just enough for a blade to slide through. He didn't remember it being like that last night. His hand hovered above the metal. "You hear it too, don't you, boy?" Rex only tilted his head, tail low. For 3 days, Ethan worked to free the hatch. He used the tools he'd salvaged from his old garage. A chisel, a crowbar, a handheld grinder that coughed more sparks than sound. Each evening, the air grew colder the deeper he cut. He ate from a can, slept in his jacket, and woke to the same smell of rust and dust. Rex kept close, sometimes whining softly, sometimes staring at the floor as though it might open by itself. By the third night, the grinder bit through the last weld. The hatch gave a sudden metallic sigh, releasing a breath of air so cold and dry it made Ethan's lungs ache. He wiped his forehead with the back of his hand and stared down into a spiral staircase, swallowed in darkness. The beam of his flashlight disappeared before it touched the bottom. "Stay," he told Rex, though the dog refused, pacing at the edge, ears sharp. Ethan strapped the flashlight to his wrist, took a slow breath, and descended. The steps moaned beneath his boots, echoing off concrete walls slick with condensation. The air smelled of ozone and machine oil. Halfway down, he found an old maintenance sign, half rusted but legible, Project Ether, authorized personnel only. The name meant nothing to him, but the word authorized made his pulse quicken. At the bottom lay a corridor, long and narrow, lined with sealed glass panels fogged from within. Ethan brushed one clean. Behind it sat a control console, screens blank, buttons covered in dust. Another panel held rows of filing cabinets, tags marked 1979, test logs, personnel, reactor readings. Everything looked preserved, untouched, but not abandoned. He stepped into a central chamber, and that was when the lights flickered. One by one, weak fluorescence blinked awake across the ceiling. Somewhere deep in the wall, a low hum began to build, steady, rhythmic, like a giant heart learning to beat again. Rex barked once, a sharp, startled sound. Ethan turned toward him, but the dog wasn't barking at the machinery. He was barking at a shape slumped near the far corner, a human figure sitting against the wall, head bowed. Ethan froze, every instinct screaming caution. He approached slowly, boots scraping the dust. The figure was a mannequin, or what looked like one. Its surface was rubbery and pale gray, shaped like a human but without eyes, mouth, or hair. A tag hung from its chest. Thermal Test Dummy, 1981. Ethan exhaled shakily, almost laughing. "Christ, you nearly took 10 years off me." He turned back to the nearest control panel. A small terminal on the desk glowed faint green. Its screen flickered, grainy text crawling across. Coal clearance accepted. Reactor integrity, 63%. Ethan's stomach dropped. His hand trembled as he reached out to the console. The name Cole hadn't been typed. It was embedded, pre-written, as though the machine had always known him. "Dad?" he muttered without meaning to. He hadn't spoken his father's name aloud in over 20 years. Thomas Cole had died when Ethan was 30, a quiet man of numbers and silence. He'd worked for an aviation subcontractor, or so he'd claimed, though Ethan remembered the late nights, the locked shed behind their old house, and the smell of burning metal that clung to his clothes. When Thomas died, the obituary listed him simply as engineer, no mention of government contracts, no mention of Project Ether. Rex sniffed the console, then backed away, whining. Ethan crouched and noticed a thin line of frost forming along the floor beneath the machine, like the concrete itself was exhaling cold. "What the hell is this place?" he whispered. A sudden metallic clank echoed from somewhere deeper in the corridor. Rex growled, muscles stiff. Ethan spun toward the sound, flashlight slicing through the dark. The hallway stretched endlessly, the far end swallowed by shadow. Then came another sound, not mechanical this time, but human. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. "Hello?" Ethan called out, his voice trembling just enough to betray him. "Is someone down here?" No answer, just the steady rhythm of steps, then silence. Rex barked again, teeth bared, body rigid. Ethan backed toward the stairwell, flashlight shaking in his hand. Then he heard a faint metallic ping behind him. The terminal screen had changed. Access override detected, initializing primary system. The lights flickered violently, then steadied, brighter now. The hum deepened into a low roar. All around him, panels along the walls began to pulse with faint blue light. On the far side of the chamber, a large cylindrical door slid open with a groan that sounded almost alive. Inside was a room lined with machinery, turbine housings, coils of copper wire, and in the center, a tall glass cylinder filled with faint swirling light. Ethan stepped closer, heart hammering. It looked like liquid sunlight, moving in slow currents, pulsing faintly in rhythm with the hum of the facility. Then he saw it, a photograph taped to the control board beside the cylinder. 4 men in lab coats stood smiling in front of the same machine. One of them, tall and broad-shouldered, with the same gray eyes and squared jaw, was unmistakable. Thomas Cole, his father. The caption scrawled in pen beneath read, "Ether Test 3, June 1981. Ethan staggered back, the edges of his vision blurring. He remembered being 12, waking one night to the sound of his father's truck, leaving at 3 a.m., headlights off. When he asked the next morning, Thomas had only said, "Some work you don't talk about, son." Now Ethan finally understood how deep that silence had gone. The hum grew louder. The light within the glass column flared suddenly, flooding the room in gold. Rex barked and lunged forward, but a blast of cold air sent him stumbling. The terminal screeched, text scrolling faster than Ethan could read. He caught only fragments. Primary system boot, energy reclamation, initiate contact protocol. "Contact?" Ethan whispered, stepping back. The light swelled again, casting his shadow against the far wall, tall and trembling. And just before everything went black, he heard a voice, soft, mechanical, but unmistakably human. "Welcome back, Thomas." Chapter 3, The Light That Breathes. The power surged back to life with a trembling hum that seemed to shake the air itself. Ethan Cole stood frozen in the bunker's central chamber, eyes fixed on the cylindrical core that glowed with slow, pulsing light. It wasn't like the cold fluorescence of machinery. It moved like it was breathing. Each pulse spread a faint warmth through the floor, as though the bunker had been waiting for someone to wake it. Rex stood by his leg, fur raised, a low growl rumbling deep in his throat. Ethan's pulse quickened. He looked toward the terminal, still flickering faint green. The line, "Welcome back," Thomas remained on screen, blinking with mechanical patience. "I'm not Thomas," Ethan muttered. "You've got the wrong Cole." The terminal didn't care. Another line appeared. "Would you like to resume the ether sequence?" He hesitated, then pressed the space bar. The screen responded with a hiss, loading a series of documents and diagrams labeled Ether Engine, Revision 12. Ethan scrolled through pages filled with technical shorthand that danced just beyond his understanding. Equations describing light resonance, gravitational feedback loops, words like temporal displacement threshold and photon containment lattice. His father's handwriting annotated the margins, tight, controlled, with the same engineer's precision Ethan remembered from grocery lists and birthday cards. One note read, "Energy does not vanish, it remembers." Rex barked suddenly and darted toward the far side of the chamber. The sound bounced off the concrete walls like a warning. Ethan followed, flashlight trembling. There, beside a set of dusty shelves, the dog pawed at the ground, whining. The beam of light revealed a small box lodged between two panels. Ethan pried it loose. It was a sealed metal case, marked with the faded insignia of the Department of Defense and a serial number ending in 1981. Inside lay a bundle of yellowed papers, a data reel, and a photograph. The picture showed 4 people in lab coats, standing in front of the Ether engine prototype. Thomas Cole was there, his smile small but proud. Next to him stood a woman, tall, with sun-touched skin and hair tied in a neat braid, her expression sharp, confident, defiant even. The back of the photo bore a single name written in ink, Dr. Miriam Hayes. Ethan set the photo down carefully. He vaguely remembered her name. His father had once mentioned a Miriam during one of his rare nights talking about work, a colleague who believed light could think. He hadn't understood it then. He wasn't sure he did now. But when he turned back to the monitor, another window had opened automatically. It was a scanned document, labeled Psych Evaluation, Pilot Num 1, Ether Test, Flight 1. The pilot's name was blacked out, but Ethan's eyes caught the phrase that chilled him. Subject vanished from radar for 12 minutes. Upon recovery, exhibited signs of temporal dislocation, partial amnesia, and ocular distortion resembling reflective luminescence. The summary ended with a single line, handwritten in his father's pen. He saw something alive in the light. Ethan's hand tightened on the paper. "Alive?" he whispered. His breath fogged slightly in the air, though the temperature hadn't changed. Rex began pacing in tight circles, sniffing the air like it carried a new scent. Then came a faint hum, not from the reactor this time, but from somewhere deeper in the facility. A new door had opened. He followed the noise through a narrow corridor, Rex at his heels. The walls here were smoother, newer, the metal less corroded. On the far end stood a thick observation window overlooking another chamber. The glass was cracked but intact. Beyond it, a faint spiral pattern had been etched into the opposite wall, an endless loop curling inward, glowing faintly blue under the emergency lights. Rex began barking at it, low and steady, his tail stiff. Ethan pressed his hand to the glass. The pattern pulsed once, just faintly, as if responding. He stumbled back, heart hammering. That wasn't possible. He turned toward a desk nearby, covered in notebooks, and opened the first one he saw. It was his father's handwriting again, but this time, the words were less technical, more personal. The first page read, "If you're reading this, it means I failed to contain what we found." The ether engine doesn't only bend light, it bends memory. It draws from the observer, not the source. It turns thought into echo. Whatever you bring into it, it remembers. Ethan flipped his first rule. If you ever restart it, don't look directly into the core. It will see you back. He dropped the notebook, his hands trembling. Rex growled again, and when Ethan looked toward the observation glass, the spiral shimmered once more, then faded. He ran his palm across his face. "This is insane," he muttered. "It's just a power glitch, right?" But his own voice sounded thin, uncertain. He returned to the main chamber where the core still pulsed, each light beat perfectly synchronized to the rhythm of his heart. He stood watching it for a long time, and then, against every instinct, he reached out and touched the glass cylinder. It was warm, too warm. The light responded instantly, brightening. For a heartbeat, Ethan saw flashes, blinding, disjointed, a desert at night, a sky ripped open by lightning, his father standing beside the machine shouting words he couldn't hear. Then came the image of Daniel, his son, in uniform, reaching out a hand that dissolved into white. Ethan gasped and fell backward, clutching his chest. The light dimmed again, calm, innocent. He sat there for a long time, breathing hard, staring at Rex, who stood motionless, head cocked, as if waiting for orders. "You saw it too," Ethan whispered. "You saw him." Somewhere above, faint thunder rolled through the mountain. Ethan gathered the papers and the photo into his pack. The last item was an unopened envelope at the bottom of the case, sealed with red wax. His father's name was written across it in fading ink. To the one who remembers. He tore it open. Inside was a single page, covered in the same handwriting as the notebook. If you found this, son, then the ether has chosen you. It doesn't answer to time, it answers to memory. Don't fear what it shows you. Fear what you bring to it, because light, when awakened, learns to breathe. Rex whimpered once, as if the words themselves made him uneasy. Ethan folded the letter, pocketed it, and stared again at the softly glowing core. It pulsed once more, almost gentle. For the briefest moment, he thought he heard something in the hum, a voice faint, familiar, and impossible. Ethan. The whisper drifted through the air like static, soft but undeniable. He turned toward Rex, but the dog's ears were pinned flat. It hadn't come from the machine. It had come from somewhere else, from the dark hallway behind him. Chapter 4. When the Sky Opens. The morning broke too still, the air outside the hangar heavy with the metallic scent of rain, not yet fallen. Ethan Cole had barely slept. The whisper calling his name still echoed faintly in his mind, not from the machine but from the dark hallway. He sat by the reactor chamber, the dull golden light of the ether engine pulsing like a heartbeat. Rex lay near the door, head up, ears twitching with every small vibration. At 9:12 a.m., the silence broke. The sound came first. Distant engines, more than one. Then tires over gravel, firm, methodical. Ethan stood, tense, his gut already telling him what his mind refused to accept. Rex growled low. Through the dusty window slats, Ethan saw them. 3 black SUVs rolling up the access road, sunlight flashing on their tinted glass. When the first vehicle stopped, 4 figures stepped out, all in matte black uniforms with no insignia. The man leading them moved with the economy of someone used to command. Tall, solid shoulders, early 50s, clean-shaven, but with a scar slicing from his right ear to his jaw. His hair was cropped close, streaked silver, his blue eyes cold and assessing. Ethan watched him for a moment before the man called out, voice sharp, steady. "Mr. Cole, I'm Colonel Mason Ward, United States Strategic Science Division. You're on restricted ground. Step outside." Ward had the look of a man who didn't need to shout to be obeyed. Every movement was precise, every syllable measured. His posture alone said he had seen too much war and learned to let orders replace emotion. His men fanned out, 3 others, younger, masked, their rifles carried low but ready. Ethan opened the hangar door halfway, keeping one hand on Rex's collar. "This land's abandoned," he said. "Bought it fair and legal." "Paperwork means nothing when you've walked into an active quarantine site," Ward replied. His tone wasn't angry, just certain. "There's an energy anomaly under this facility. We've been tracking it since the Cold War. You need to leave." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I didn't activate anything I didn't understand." Ward's gaze flicked to Rex, then back. "And yet, Mr. Cole, the moment your name went into that system, the readings changed. You woke something that's been dormant 40 years. Ethan felt a chill run through him. "You know about my father." Ward nodded once. "Thomas Cole worked under Project Ether. I knew him." His voice softened for a single heartbeat. "He was one of the good ones, until the experiment went wrong." Ethan's throat tightened. What went wrong? Ward hesitated, as though measuring how much truth a civilian could handle. He opened a window he couldn't close. Then, more quietly, "And we've been waiting for it to open again." Before Ethan could respond, Rex began barking, fur bristling, eyes locked on the tree line. A flicker of movement caught Ethan's eye. 2 more figures approaching, dressed differently. Civilian clothing beneath dark windbreakers, cameras slung around their necks. One was a woman, mid-30s, tall, with auburn hair and a loose ponytail, and a camera bag worn to the threads. Her name was Sarah Whitman, a freelance journalist known for chasing classified rumors. Her sharp green eyes flicked from Ward to Ethan, calculating quickly. She carried herself with a restless confidence born of years of being told no and going anyway. The man beside her, Derek Shaw, was shorter, stockier, mid-40s, with a thick brown beard and a limp that made every step deliberate. A former combat photographer turned fixer, Derek was pragmatic where Sarah was curious, gruff where she was bold. The limp came from a roadside bomb in Kandahar, and though his body healed, something in his eyes had not. Ward turned sharply. "Ma'am, sir, this is restricted military property. Turn around now." Sarah ignored him. "You're chasing energy readings, right? Heard chatter about old Cold War projects lighting up again. My editor—" "I don't care about your editor," Ward snapped, motioning one of his men forward. "Get them out of here." Ethan stepped between them, raising a hand. "She might not be wrong. You don't understand what's under here. That thing isn't just power, it remembers." Ward looked at him hard. "Exactly why you need to come with us." But Rex barked again, louder this time, his growl turning into something close to panic. Then came the tremor, a low vibration from beneath the floor. The lights flickered, dimmed, then surged to full brightness. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. "It's waking up!" Ward's men raised their weapons instinctively, though there was nothing to shoot at. A hum filled the air, deep and resonant, like the bunker itself was drawing breath. The ether engine roared to life below. Rex lunged toward the hatch, barking frantically. Ethan followed, adrenaline pushing him past reason. "Come on, boy!" "Cole!" Ward shouted. "Don't touch that machine!" Ethan didn't stop. He sprinted down the spiral stairs, Rex right behind him, as the lights along the walls flared white-blue. Behind them, the sound of shouting and boots echoed down the stairwell. When they reached the chamber, the ether core was blazing, its light no longer gold but fierce white, swirling like a living storm. Ethan slammed his hand onto the console. "If this thing knows me, maybe it'll listen." The screen flashed. Energy feedback critical. Reversal possible. Initiate. He hit yes. A surge of light exploded outward. Rex barked once, then the sound bent, stretched, like the air itself was folding. Time fractured. In that brilliance, Ethan saw everything. His father standing beside a younger version of himself, both watching the machine hum like a star. Daniel, his son, alive, laughing on a sunlit porch. Sarah, and Ward, frozen mid-motion, faces blurred as if caught between seconds. Rex stood beside him in every version. Older, younger, sometimes two of him at once. All loyal, all waiting. The world held its breath. Then, silence. When the light receded, the bunker was still. The hum faded into a steady rhythm, soft, organic. The ether engine pulsed quietly like a beating heart. Rex stood beside him unharmed, head tilted, eyes calm. But the soldiers, the journalists, gone. Not dead, just not there. Ethan's reflection stared back at her from the glass cylinder, but it wasn't the same face. His hair looked lighter, his wrinkles softer, as if the machine had taken something, or given something back. He whispered into the quiet, "What did you do?" The reactor glowed once, as if in answer. Chapter 5. The Shepherd of Light. The storm had passed days ago, but the air around the old power station still shimmered faintly, as if the light had never quite returned to normal. Ethan Cole stood outside the hangar, the morning sun painting gold over the wet concrete. The grass, burned away in last week's strange explosion, had begun to grow back in pale green shoots. He had stopped wondering how or why. Some things, he had decided, were better lived than explained. Rex trotted beside him, tail sweeping low, his fur glossy under the sunlight. The dog had changed too, nothing outward perhaps, but in the way he carried himself. There was a stillness in him, a watchfulness, as though he understood that whatever had happened beneath the earth was not just survival, but a kind of rebirth. He had seen something, just as Ethan had. The bunker remained quiet now. The ether engine pulsed only faintly, a sleeping heart beneath the floor. Ethan had sealed the hatch, but not locked it. He told himself he might need to return, but deep down he knew the machine no longer belonged to him, or anyone. It had done what it came to do. Weeks passed. The black SUVs never returned. No reports appeared on the news. Sarah Whitman and Derek Shaw had vanished without a trace. And Colonel Mason Ward's name, when Ethan tried to look it up online at the town library, brought up only an empty service record. Deceased, 1991. Whether they had been pulled into the light or erased by it, Ethan didn't know. What he did know was this: he was still here, and so was Rex. He began to rebuild his life, slow and quiet. He drove into town once a week, buying tools, scrap metal, and second-hand radios from whoever would sell. The locals, wary at first, began to greet him. They called him the mechanic up on the hill. One of them, a widow named Margaret Doyle, gray-haired but lively-eyed, ran the general store. She was a small woman with deep laugh lines and a stubborn kindness that refused to be worn down by age. When Ethan first stepped inside her shop, she handed him a cup of coffee before he could ask for anything. "You've got the look of someone who fixes more than machines," she'd said. He didn't know how to answer that, so he just smiled. By spring, the workshop was no longer silent. He repaired tractors for the farmers, mended broken watches for children, rewired lamps that hadn't worked in years. He never took more than people could pay. Sometimes, he took nothing at all. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about motion, the quiet redemption of work. Rex became a local legend. The dog waited by the road every morning, tail thumping at every passing truck. Children adored him, and even the most guarded townsfolk swore he could sense sickness before it showed. Once, when a farmer's wife collapsed outside the store, Rex barked until Ethan came running. They got her to the clinic in time. Word spread. One afternoon, while cleaning the rust off a discarded alternator, Ethan caught a glimpse of something impossible. On the chrome surface of the machine, the reflection of a man appeared beside him, not his own, but older, straighter, with sharp eyes and the faintest trace of a smile. Thomas Cole, his father. Ethan didn't move. "You were right," he said softly. "It wasn't meant to be controlled." The reflection smiled wider, then slowly faded as sunlight shifted across the metal. That night, Ethan sat on the porch of the small shack he now called home. The sky above the mountains burned orange, then violet. Rex rested his head on Ethan's boots. The silence was full, but not empty. He thought about the people who'd vanished, the colonel, the journalists, and how some mysteries, once opened, don't close but transform. Perhaps they weren't gone at all. Perhaps they had become part of the light. When autumn came, Ethan made a choice. He packed his tools, loaded the pickup, and drove down into town. He rented a corner lot beside the old post office and built a new garage by hand, plank by plank. He called it Cole's Lightworks. The sign out front read, "Repairs of all kinds, mechanical or otherwise." The first customer was a teenager with a broken radio. The boy, lanky and awkward, reminded Ethan of Daniel at 16. Always curious, always touching wires he shouldn't. Ethan fixed the radio in silence. When the boy asked how much, Ethan just said, "Bring it back when it breaks again." The boy grinned and ran out into the street, the radio buzzing faintly with life. Margaret passed by that afternoon and stood at the doorway. "You really think you can fix the world one broken thing at a time?" Ethan wiped his hands on a rag and smiled. "No, but I can try." In the evenings, when the work was done, he would sit on the steps outside with Rex. The dog had grown gray around the muzzle now, slower, but still proud. Sometimes Ethan swore he could hear a faint hum beneath the town, low, rhythmic, the ghost of the ether engine still breathing far below. It no longer frightened him. On the first anniversary of the light, a gentle rain fell. Ethan placed his palm on Rex's head and whispered, "We did all right, didn't we?" Rex licked his hand, eyes half closed, tail thumping once against the wooden step. As twilight deepened, the last rays of sun reflected off the wet pavement, casting a shimmer across the garage window. For a moment, Ethan thought he saw three silhouettes standing there, his father, his son, and himself, fused together in light. No sorrow, no fear, only recognition. The vision faded with the sunset. Ethan looked toward the mountains. "Thank you," he murmured, unsure if he was speaking to God, his father, or the machine, maybe all three. The sign above the door glowed faintly in the fading light, Cole's Lightworks. And beneath it, the man and his dog sat quietly, keepers of a small miracle, guardians of what the world had forgotten, that no matter how deep the darkness, light always remembers the way home. Sometimes miracles don't come with thunder or angels. Sometimes they come quietly, in the hum of an old machine, in the wag of a loyal tail, in the heartbeat of a man who learns to forgive. Ethan didn't rebuild the world. He simply fixed what was broken, one bolt, one soul, one memory at a time. And maybe that's what God wanted all along, not grand miracles, but small ones that live inside ordinary hearts. Because when light begins to breathe again, it means hope never truly died. And somewhere, in every second chance, God still whispers, "Begin again." If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs a little light today. Leave a comment, subscribe for more stories of faith, love, and the bond between man and his loyal friend. May God bless you, and may his light breathe gently in your life too.